Welcome to part 2 of how to play. Let's start with the setup phase. Once you've assembled your 26 card deck, you're ready to start. Each player should place their villain card in front of them on the playmat if you're using, and shuffle the rest of their deck, then place the deck in front of them face down. Next, it's time to set up the movement map. Place the movement map in the centre of all players. Collectively decide a layout card from the set. Use this card to position the base pieces and the roaming hero piece. Then assign your villain piece to one of the 3 villain spaces on a first come, first served basis. The next step is the hero deck. The number of cards in a hero deck should be 5 times the number of players. For example, 10 hero cards for 2 players. There should be no more than 2 of the same card in a deck. Shuffle the deck and place it within reach of all players face down. After this is the influence deck. Again, the number of cards in an influence deck should be 5 times the number of players. There should be no more than 2 of the same card in this deck. Shuffle the deck and place it within reach of all players face down. Then lay out 3 cards face up so they are visible to all players. Finally, set up the base deck. For 2-player games, use bases 1 to 6 only. For 3 to 4-player games, use all 8 bases. Stack the cards within reach of all players face up. Next, draw 5 cards from your deck into your hand. Always keep these cards hidden from other players. If you are not happy with your starting hand, you may shuffle your hand back into your deck and redraw once more. If you do this, all other players get an extra influence token on their first turn. Next, if players want to, they can place minion or upgrade cards from their hand to play face up in front of them ahead of the game commencing. Each player would then take turns to put a maximum of 2 minion cards and a maximum of 3 upgrade cards from their hand into the play positions. Minion and upgrade cards must be placed in these visible play positions to be used. Trick cards and any influence cards you buy can be used directly from your hand and do not need to be put on the playmat. Finally, place the dice within reach of all players and get the scorecard and a pen ready. Now that you have set up the game, it's time to play. The player who has most recently committed a villainous act goes first. For games with more than 2 players, play proceeds clockwise. This is a quick summary for the steps you take during your turn. Step 1, draw a card. Step 2, collect influence tokens. Step 3, roll the dice. Step 4, play cards. Step 5, play your villain. Step 6, move the roaming hero. And depending on your ability, it can be used at step 4 or 5, but I'll go through this in more detail. Now let's go through these steps in more detail. Step 1, draw a card, which means you draw a card from your player deck and place it into your hand. Step 2, collect influence tokens, so you collect the number of tokens based on your villain's influence rating. So step 3 is roll the dice. So if you roll a number between 2 and 5, you can choose to multiply either your attack or movement rating by the number rolled. If you rolled a H, you must battle a hero on this turn. You should go immediately to the hero battle phase, which we'll touch upon later. If you rolled an RH, move the roaming hero piece based on your villain's evasion score. Just to note, this piece cannot move diagonally. They can pass over bases, but cannot stop directly on a base unless it's occupied by a villain. Step 4 is play cards in any order. Let's go through the cards. Trick cards, you can only use 1 card per turn directly from your hand. Minion cards, you can put a minion card from your hand into a play position. Once in a play position, the minion card cannot be removed until it is defeated or a specific card allows removal. There are a maximum of 2 play positions which are located in a row directly to the right of your villain card. When minions are in play, any attacks from opponents' villains must target and defeat the minions first. Attacks are directed towards the minion card placed closest to the villain card and then distributed to any additional minion in play. When their health rating reaches 0, they are defeated. Flip the card so it's face down. If the opponent has any attack remaining when all minions are defeated, this is then directed towards the villain. So say your villain attack does 5, their minion has 2 health left. This means after defeating their minion, you can use 3 leftover attack on the villain card. To replace minions on your turn, you have to spend 2 health points from your villain and move the defeated minion to the discard pile. You can then put a new minion card into play. Let's talk about upgrade cards now. You can either put these into play or sell any that are currently in play. Once in a play position, the upgrade cannot be removed unless sold, or if it's a one-shot card, once used, or if you choose to sell it instead. You'll see there are a maximum of 3 play positions which are located in a row directly under your villain card. To use their abilities, action them as described on the card. You cannot put an upgrade card into play and then sell it on the same turn. You must wait until the following turn to sell it, and you cannot sell it directly from your hand either. So discard the card once sold. Once removed, the play position that the card occupied cannot be filled with a new card until the very next turn. Let's talk about influence cards now. You can purchase 1 card on your turn, and you can either play it on that same turn or keep it in your hand for a later turn. Now, as mentioned in the last video, you can only hold 2 influence cards maximum. Moving on to step 5, after you have played all your cards, it's time to use your villain card. Do one of the following: either attack a villain, attack a base, or move your villain piece. Let's elaborate on this further. So with attacking a villain, you choose another player's villain to attack. Multiply your attack rating by the number rolled on the dice. Note, if you rolled a roaming hero, you just attack or move based on your villain's evasion rating. Using the attack rating, attack any minions in play first. All remaining attack rating is then directed to the villain, reducing their health. Attacking a base. Once your villain piece lands on a base, you can attack it. Use your attack rating times the dice number to damage the base's health. If a player leaves a base before it has been destroyed, its health resets to its original amount. Once a base's health is destroyed, it becomes the property of your villain. Take the base card. When your villain is positioned on that base, it cannot be taken by other players. And once a base is captured, its health rating is increased to 20 points. Once a base is defeated, you can either use any excess attack as movement. Please note though, if you choose to use this attack, you cannot use movement upgrades in the same turn, as you're still technically attacking. So for example, you couldn't use the spring shoes card. When a player has left the base, other players can attempt to capture that base for themselves. The final thing you can do with your villain is move your villain piece by timesing your movement rating by what you rolled on the dice. Note, there are some limitations. You cannot move diagonally, just up, down, left or right, and you cannot step over another villain or hero, roaming hero piece, unless you use a card which allows it. You also cannot move to a square that is already occupied by another villain. If you have excess movement points after reaching a base, you can use the remaining movement to attack the base during the same turn. Note, if you use this excess, you cannot use attack base upgrades in the same turn, as you're technically moving. Moving on to step 6. So this involves moving the roaming hero. So you move the roaming hero piece according to your villain's evasion rating. Just to mention, this piece cannot move diagonally. Also, they can pass over bases but can only stop on a base when it's occupied by a villain. The roaming hero can land on a villain's starting point as well. You'll notice that some villains have abilities. These can be activated at step 4 or step 5 depending on the villain card. It's entirely up to the player. For example, for the Portal Squad card, you may choose to use it at step 4 so you can put down new minions, whereas with the Lola Archer's ability, you'll likely use this during step 5. Let's talk about what happens when an opponent moves the roaming hero and it lands on your square. When the roaming hero piece occupies the same space as a villain's piece, a battle commences on your turn. Here's what to do if your villain encounters the roaming hero. Step 1. Immediately remove the roaming hero piece from the movement map. On your immediate turn, draw a card from your player deck and collect your influence token as usual. However, step 3, you do not roll the dice. Follow the steps in the hero battle phase, then come back to step 4. Step 4. After you have defeated the roaming hero, you need to place it back on the movement map. This can be on its original starting point or any unoccupied corner of the map, providing there's not a villain or base already in that square. Step 5. End turn. You cannot use your villain's evasion score to move the roaming hero piece at the end of this turn. Finally, let's talk about the hero battle phase and what this involves. So step 1, you draw a hero from the hero deck. Step 2, you play your cards. You can place upgrade or minion cards into play. You can also use trick cards as well as purchase influence cards to use. Step 3, battle begins. The hero goes first with their attack. Follow their card description. Step 4, it's your response. So it's your turn to attack after the hero. So you use your attack rating on the hero and any power up from minions if you're using them. Note, you can only use one minion's power to boost your attack per turn. If a minion dies, you cannot replace it this turn. When battling the hero, you do not use the dice, and you cannot attack another villain or move this turn unless you have a card in play that states otherwise. Step 5, continue battling. The battle alternates between the hero and the villain. Continue battling until the hero or the villain is defeated. Step 6, defeat. If you manage to defeat the hero, place the hero card at the bottom of the hero card deck and claim 3 influence tokens as a reward. Step 7, end battle. You cannot use your evasion score to move the roaming hero piece at the end of this turn. Finally, let's talk about elimination. In a 3 to 4 player game, if a player's villain's health reaches 0, they are eliminated and any of their captured bases become available again, and any active effects they cast cease to exist. So that's the end of part 2 of the rules. In the next video, I'm planning to go through a few rounds of gameplay so you can see the rules in action.